We are so excited to welcome Jason Reynolds to Storyteller Spotlight. Jason is a #1 New York Times bestselling author of many award-winning books, including, but not limited to, Look Both Ways, All American Boys, Long Way Down, Stamped Racism, Anti-Racism in You, Stunt Boy, and Ain't Burned All Bright. The recipient of a Newbery Honor, a Prince Honor, an NAACP Image Award, and multiple Coretta Scott King honors. Reynolds was also the 2020 to 2022 National Ambassador for Young People's Literature. He lives in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to start with Jason talking a bit about the origin of this new picture book, and then he's going to read a portion of it, and then we'll go to the Q&A.
So this book, There Was a Party for Langston. It all comes from this lovely photograph. You know, I was a kid who loved this picture when I was much younger. I saw it a long time ago, and I just loved it because the two people in this picture who are dancing are two of my heroes, Maya Angelou and Amiri Baraka. And they're at a library in Harlem, New York City, and they're dancing at a party. And the party was for their hero, also one of my heroes, whose name was Langston Hughes. And the interesting thing about the photograph, the secret about the photograph, is not only are they dancing for Langston Hughes, but the great Langston Hughes' ashes, after he passed away, his ashes were actually buried right under their feet in the floor of this building. And so they're dancing on their hero to celebrate the work that he did. All right, now I'm going to read a bit from the book just to give you a taste of what it sounds like. You all are getting a spoiler right now, but don't worry about it. It'll still be good when I start from the top. All right. There was a party for Langston, the king of letters. There was a party for Langston at the library, a jam in Harlem to celebrate the word-making man. Langston, the king of letters, whose ABCs became drums, bumping, jumping, thumping, like a heart the size of the whole wide world. Langston was the best word maker around. Could make the word mother feel like real warm arms wrapped around you, giving a snug hug. Could make the word America look like two friends making pinky promises to be cool, to be true. Could make the word Harlem sound like the perfect place to have a party. Make it seem like you could just bust a move right there in the H or the L or the M of it. There was a blowout for Langston to celebrate the man who wrote wake-up stories and rise and shine rhymes. Ever since he was just a little boy daydreaming under the Ohio sky, turning birds into words, flying all around him, imagining the clouds as paper to put them on, the best word maker in his class. But not everyone understood Langston. Some people thought it was better to be word breakers, thought his spelling deserved yelling, wanted to take words like free and love and cut them in half, pull them apart, keep all the letters from touching and sharing, keep the big H's with the little h's and the big A's with the little a's. But Langston, the brave word maker, knew letters were better together, turned them into laughter. And that laughter rang out for years and years in cities and towns, on trains and tractors, to classrooms and bedrooms, bringing joy to the little and the big. And that's why there was a party for Langston at the library, a fancy foot get down all out bash, and all the books on the shelves were listening and looking at all the people shimmying full of dazzle. Don't nobody dance like a word maker, and all the best word makers were there. like Maya, who Langston's language laughter tickled as a child, who grew up reading his words and learned to make words of her own. She could make the word woman seem like the word mountain, and the word cage feel like a place far, far away. From this library or from this party, Maya dressed in constellations, stars dangling from her. She rose up from the floor, flapping like a free bird, flapping so freely with wings unbroken. Amiri, another one of Langston's word children, was at that party too. Came bopping in, dressed in his good clothes and his soft shoes, black his favorite word on his tongue. Amiri could make the word black sound like it could be red, could make the word black echo into the future and way back into the past. Back to Langston, Amiri came to recite poems at his hero's feet, came to dance boom, ba boom, boom, ba boom, boom, came to offer his rickety radio heart to Langston, the man who wrote his neighborhood as America, and his family as America, and his funky music as America, and America as America too. The man who wrote Maya and Amiri into the world.
Okay. If you want to see the rest of the book, you have to buy it. All
Yes.
right. So we thank you, Jason. We have our first question from the Jason Reynolds fan club in Lander, Wyoming, where they are wondering, how do you keep your imagination alive while writing about such challenging topics?
Such a good question. I think for me, my life, imagination is what sparks your creativity. So in order for you to keep your creativity and for me to continue to write these things, my imagination has to stay turned on. And the way I turn my imagination on is I live a curious life. Curiosity is what feeds imagination. Imagination is what feeds creativity, right? That's how that works. So I live a curious life and I try to learn all the things that there are for me to learn just because they're there for me to learn, right? It doesn't mean that I have to be necessarily interested in it. It doesn't mean it has to be always exciting. But if there are things that I don't know, then I need to know. And I try to go out into the world every day with an open mind and an open heart so that I can learn more about what it is to be a human being in this world.
Mrs. Hanley and Mrs. Franks, third graders at Whitmore Elementary in Massachusetts, want to know, who do you think are the children's authors of today who could be as inspiring as Langston, Maya, and Amiri, besides Jason, of course?
Well, yeah, I would never put myself in that. But I would say Renee Watson is one that I think is just incredible for sure. I would say Amber McBride is somebody I would put in that category. Candace Elo, Tony Keith. Um, I think it's interesting. There's probably a lot of people that I could call. I still love Sharon Creech. She's a little older, but I love Sharon Creech. I love Jacqueline Woodson, Sharon Draper, and all those that generation. Lori Haltz Anderson. Um, I love who are some of the younger people coming up that I'm watching. Case and Calendar, I think is brilliant, brilliant, brilliant person. Lots of people. There's Raul. I mean, even some of the people that aren't necessarily using words. I mean, Raul uses words. Raul the third, he uses words, but mainly art. I think the artists are also people that we should be paying attention to, right? People like Raul or Christian Robinson or Vashti Harrison, right? They're part of this too. They also are the poets in their own right. It's just with image, you know.
Mrs. Bell's fourth graders want to know what inspires some of your stories, and are they based off of any of your real life experiences?
Some of them are based on real life experiences. I mean, I'm always drawing from my life, right? They're not autobiographical. They're not pieces of nonfiction, but they are sort of rooted in things that sometimes I've seen or experienced, or my friends have seen or experienced, or my family has seen or experienced. I was fortunate to grow up a kid living a very colorful life. At the time when I was living this colorful life as a child, it didn't always feel so good. But now, in retrospect, I look back on it and I say, wow, I lived an adventure, right? Yes, it wasn't always easy. Yes, there were some complicated moments, but I have so much to draw from now. Like what does it mean to be a kid like Ghost? What does it mean to be a kid like Ernie and Jeannie, right? Who's based on my brother and I growing up with our blind grandfather? What does it mean to be a kid with an older brother who you idolized and you get in trouble because you want to be like him? What does it mean to be a kid with anxiety? And so then you get a book like Stunt Boy. So yeah, I pull a little bit from me and then I imagine the rest.
Paige wants to know, have you ever felt like giving up on a book?
Oh yeah, all the time. Paige, I want to tell you that there are moments in life where you'll want to quit. And my job as the adult is to tell you to not quit. But the other part of me is to be honest with you and to tell you that if whatever it is in front of you is harming you, it's also okay sometimes for you to back away from it. It's okay sometimes for you to bow out if it's harming you, right? So there are books that I have finished. There are books that I've put down and picked up 2 years later, and there are books that I have quit that just didn't work. I thought it was going to work and it just didn't work. Now, does that mean that the book is a failure? No. It just means that the idea was going to turn into something else, right? It wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but it became a different thing. And so it still lives in the world in a different way, right? But you don't have to look at you saying this might not be the way as a failure. Quitting doesn't have to mean failure. And I think that's sometimes what we teach, and it's not true. Sometimes quitting means change. That's all.
Fourth graders from Westmead Elementary want to know what you like to do when you're not reading and writing.
Sleeping, of course. I'm a person who works a lot and I travel a lot. I'm in a hotel room right now in New York City. I'm not home. Sleeping is a big part of it. Eating, I love to cook. I love to hang out with my family, my siblings, my mom. I'm taking my brothers to Puerto Rico next week. I'm very excited to hang out with my siblings as we celebrate my older brother's birthday. Um, I'm a simple guy, I think sometimes people, because of success or whatever weird thing that happens when a lot of people know your name, they assume that I don't do the things that everybody does. I just loaf around and watch terrible television and play video games and hang out with my brothers and my mom and regular stuff. Go to the basketball games.
North Linden Elementary fifth graders said, we loved reading the book Ghost this year. What did it feel like to write this book?
Oh, goodness. I wrote it so long ago. What I'll tell you, I know that if you're asking what it felt like emotionally, I don't want to lie to you. I don't remember what it felt like emotionally, but I do remember knowing that I was writing something that was working. If I remember it feeling different. And, when I was writing it, I'm like, man, like the ease in which the words were coming. I think that book took me 6 weeks, maybe and that's with the edit and everything. Like I knew that whatever was coming or whatever was happening on the page was I don't know if I would say good, but it was just what it was supposed to be. And I knew that when I was typing those words way back then at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. I'll never forget. Yeah, so and you should know that Ghost is based on a friend of mine named Matthew Carter, who that did happen to. And he's very proud of it, and I'm very proud of him, the real Ghost.
Amy wants to know what inspires you to write, and then I guess what made you want to be a writer in the first place.
Yeah, what inspires me to write? I mean, the young people of the world. I spend a lot of my time hanging out with people your age and listening to you and talking to you and laughing with you. I'm curious about what you're curious about. I love the sort of the compassion and the sensitivity and the sort of there's a courage that you all have when it comes to owning yourselves that I really value. And that inspires me, right? At the same time, I also know that the things I went through as a young person are still happening today, right? That people know a lot of young people know what it means to lose a family member or friends. People know what it means to sort of watch your family change and houses sort of split up and all that kind of thing happens, right? People know what it's like to be afraid or to deal with neighborhoods that might be a bit more complicated than others. So because I know those things still exist in the world, and I also know that the young people have more language than I had when I was coming up. All of these things make me want to produce more work for you all because now I know that when I give it to you, you're able to manage and really sort of have an exchange and conversation and thought around what exactly it is that I presented, right? So like I can give you a book that's complicated like Ghost, and you can say, look, was Ghost right or wrong when he stole the shoes? And now we can have an honest conversation about like, well, he was wrong in this way, but his intentions weren't to be wrong, and his intentions were actually coming from a place of love and compassion for his mom. And we know that, right? And we can have those conversations. So that inspires me. And what made me want to be a writer in the first place? I was a kid who had a lot of stuff on the inside. Some of you know what that means, right? Stuff. You got stuff going on in here, stuff going on in here. And I needed to figure out a way to save my own life. Needed to figure out a way to get it out. Like anything that's poison on the inside needs to be, somehow we need to get it out of our bodies and put it on the outside. And writing was the thing that gave me the opportunity to do that. So I'll always be grateful for it because without it, I'm not sure I'd be sitting here today.
To that point, what were you like as a kid?
I was shy and I was quiet and I was anxious, but I was also a knucklehead. Was mischievous at the same time, and I was a cool kid, but also a nerd. Had friends on both sides, right? Like I could sit anywhere I wanted to in the lunchroom because I was in every kind of group. I was an athlete and a part of like the academic was it was a thing called like it's academic, which I don't know if it still exists, but for the kids, it was like childhood. It's like being on Jeopardy as a child, right? So I was a part of like both of those things, and I don't know. I was well rounded, I think. And I was weird. I was an art kid, so I dressed funny and I always was sort of on my own vibe. And I had a bunch of friends who were not like me, but who looked out for me and made sure that I was safe and protected me because they understood that I was a little bit different. And I love them for that even to this day. Um, yeah, all of you would have loved to have known me when I was a kid. I was much better when I was younger. I was like, I was interesting. I'll say that I was interesting.
Fourth graders from Iowa want to know about when you work with illustrators. What's that like?
You know what? I couldn't tell you because we don't really work with them, right? So like, I have illustrators, as you know, but I mean, we just saw some of the art and there was a party for Langston, but we never talk. The illustrator and the writer, they never talk when we make books. That's the big secret that nobody knows. We never talk. We never even meet usually until the book comes out. Um, and yeah, so I only work with people that I trust, but we usually don't speak at all.
Did you get to meet Maya Angelou when she was still alive?
I saw her. I saw her. She came to DC, and I went and saw her, and it was amazing because when she came on stage, I could feel the presence of her, like pushing me back in the seat. And it was amazing. And afterward, I was so obsessed with her. I was probably 18, maybe, and I became so obsessed with her that, like, back in the day, we had this thing called the phone book. I guess it's still around, but it was like a book that was this big fat book with everybody's phone numbers in it. And I remember going to get the phone book, and I found Maya Angelou's phone number in it, her office phone, and I called her office phone every day for probably 3 months and left messages just saying that I wanted to talk to her about my poetry. I look back on it now and I was like, it's never cool to be a stalker. But at the time, I just was so inspired by her and what I had witnessed that night. And she was one of the people who changed my life, for sure.
Maya, an eighth grader, wants to know what inspired you to write All American Boys.
Oof. I mean, I grew up a kid who experienced police violence, and my brothers and family members experienced police violence. And in 2014, we were going through this new reckoning in this country around what was actually happening, and specifically in poor or black and brown neighborhoods. And I wanted to try to figure out how to shine some light on it. I think it were all these adults talking about it, right? They were talking about it in all these weird and strange ways and combative ways and fighting, right? Adults do that on the news all the time. All I kept thinking was, yeah, but that kid was 17 years old, 18 years old. Like, I wonder, is anybody wondering what his classmates are thinking about? I wonder, is anybody thinking about the kids around him who are close to his age who had to walk past his body dead in the street? These are the things that I'm thinking about. And I'm like, well, let me try to put some language to this so that there is something for the young people to hold on to bite down on and say, this is what it feels like in some of our communities. This is the fear that we feel. This is the anger that we feel. Um, and it was a big risk and everybody was scared of it and still is scared of it, but it's not a conversation that's anti-police. I'm not anti-police. I'm just anti-police brutality. I'm anti-police violence. And I want us to all be better as American citizens.
Tell us about the switch to making a picture book. What was different?
Oh, everything was different. I mean, look, I've been, so first of all, I've been trying to write picture books for years. I probably wrote 40 of them before you all got the Langston book. I've been working on picture books since I was 25 years old. I'm almost 42. So that's almost 17 years, right? And I only got one done. And then the reason why is because they're the hardest form. It's the hardest thing to write. How do you take a whole story and wrap it up in about 300 words, 400 words, right? It's really hard to do that. I'm writing, you know, 2 or 3 paragraphs, and I'm supposed to have it all there. And you got to leave space for the images. I mean, it's a different muscle. It's like trying to paint, a famous painting like the Mona Lisa, but you only have black and white paint to use, but it still has to look like the Mona Lisa. It's very difficult. So, but I loved it and I love doing it now. And I've got some other picture books coming and it's great.
Philip, a fifth grader from Lexington, Kentucky, wants to know, what are your goals as an author?
To be honest and to be true to myself and to be loving to you. That's it.
Second grade from Stony Point wants to know, what made you want to write about Langston?
When I was a kid, Langston Hughes was like, he was sort of, I'm, I don't want to disrespect him, but he was sort of like the poet that everybody knew. He was accessible. My mom had a book in the house that I would occasionally go and flip open, but he just always felt like, I mean, in school we were reading poems that I didn't understand, but I understood Langston's poems, right? It seemed as though he was writing them just for me or kids like me. And yeah, I don't know. I hope that like the way people talk about me now, I hope that some other kid feels that way, the way I felt about Langston. I hope some young person is like, yeah, we had to read Jason in class, and for the first time I realized that like there's something for me, that this language feels like my language, or whatever the energy is in this book, it feels like my energy. This is a person who's writing for me. That's how I felt about Langston when I was younger.
You talked a bit about why you started writing, but Matthias from Underwood Elementary wants to know how old you were when you started writing.
I was 10, so right around y'all age. I was 10 years old, and my grandmother passed away, and I was going through like all this sort of pain from that, and I was watching my mom go through it, and I was trying to figure out how to make her feel better. So I wrote her a poem. Um, and I got that from rap music. I used to read the rap lyrics back in the day, and I was like, oh, I can't rap, but I can like write like this. And I wrote it for my mom, and that was the beginning of what would become my life as a writer.
A first grade class from Illinois wants to know how did you start your career as an author?
Oof. I was 21, and before I was signed as a professional author, I used to make books myself. I used to just make them, self-publish them. I would pay to have a printer print up books, and I would sell them out of the back of my mother's car. And I went to New York City at 20-ish, and tried to figure out how to get somebody else to take a look at what I'd made, hoping that they would give me a shot and an opportunity. Nobody did. Right at the time, the internet wasn't the internet. We couldn't figure out, like, I couldn't figure out how to, like, how do you get a book deal? How do you get into these spaces, these offices? And eventually, I had a friend who was on television at the time, and he gave it to his agent, and it's all this, like, all these other people who represent us. And so basically, he's the one who got me the meeting, and that meeting would eventually be the meeting that got me into the business. But it was all because I invested and believed in myself, right? Before anybody said okay, or before anybody said we like you, I liked me, and I believed that what I was writing was good to me. It was good to me, right? And it turns out sometimes having a little self-confidence will carry you across the finish line.
Okay, so last question. Uh, Talar is wondering about what it was like as the national ambassador.
It was amazing. It was amazing because I got to see the country and parts of the country that maybe I would have never gone to. I'm a city kid, East Coast, DC boy, New York boy, right? I've spent a lot of time in LA, Miami, Atlanta, right? These sort of major sort of cities that a lot of us sort of live in. But for my ambassadorship, I went to smaller towns. I went and visited little teeny towns around this country that had really big people. And what I mean by that is these towns that were small in size, but the people that I met, they had humongous hearts and big spirits, and showed me a lot of love. And so what I learned is that there are amazing people all over this country. There are amazing young people all over this country that we agree on more than we disagree on. And that we all laugh at the same jokes, we want the same things. Like, it was really powerful for me to see the kids of America in a very different way. And it gave me hope for the future.
Okay, in the last minute here, I want everyone to go over to the chat and say whatever you want to say to Jason, and I will share the whole chat with him. So tell him what books you love or anything you want to tell him. And Jason, in the last minute here, is there anything you want to say to all the thousands of young people that are watching?
Of course, I love y'all. And I mean that sincerely. When you read my books, take them as love notes. I love y'all. I work very hard because of the love I have for you. Whether I know you or not, I know you well in here. And don't ever forget that.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. You gave us really, really great questions for Jason. I'm sorry I could only get to some of them, but I will share the whole Q&A and I will share the whole chat with him. And so he gets to see all your words. This is a massively attended Storyteller Spotlight, so we're very excited about today. The recording will be sent to you. You can rewatch it. Again, Jason, thank you for coming.
Of course.
Everyone, thank you so much for your questions and have a wonderful day.
Peace.